A national landmark over a bluff in downtown Rockford faces a fundraising cliff. Nathaniel Langley learns why Tinker Swiss Cottage's director hopes to stop local history from crumbling.
This is one of my favorite places in the entire state of Illinois.
Samantha Hockman protects Rockford's Tinker Swiss Cottage.
And I want you to feel like this is part of your history too, not just Rockford's history, but part of our community.
Since its construction atop a limestone bluff in 1865, erosion has sunken the back of the cottage, including the steps right here.
And limestone, which we're set on, is already a soft rock.
Hockman says the problem started with leaky pipes in the basement.
It has drastically accelerated the deterioration. So you can see how the porch is roped off.
The museum's executive director says restoration starts by reattaching the porch.
I mean, this fencing is not even really
replacing the metal fence and putting in a new limestone slab.
It is a large project.
Tinker Swiss sets a goal of raising $600,000 to cover construction.
It's a lot of money to do, but you also have to include in the fact that there's a very big safety situation that needs to take place with this.
Hockman says local donors are stepping in.
So it's been a really nice thing to see that people remember that we're here.
With a restored bluff, she believes Tinker Swiss will stand for generations to come.
You can't really continue building up a community if you don't know where the community's already been.
In Rockford, Nathaniel Langley, WIFR News.
The museum's director believes construction could start as soon as spring 2027 if the fundraising goal is reached. Anyone wishing to help can find a donation page on their website.